Everybody, welcome back to the Real Connection podcast. I'm one of the hosts. My wife is absent today, but we made a real connection on Facebook with my brother here, Stephen Snook. That's how you say your last name, right, brother? Stephen Snook.
You got it, bro.
Awesome, brother. Hey, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Let's go back before being locked up. Like, what was your life like before that took place?
Sure, bro. Short version, man, I got adopted into a really bad family when I was about 2 years old. My
Okay.
mom was 15 when she had me. She was 13 when she had my brother. So she was just a very, very young woman with two kids. She couldn't handle us. This was in Virginia. And so she essentially just gave us to the state. And we were eventually adopted by a family member on my brother's side. We had two different fathers. They brought us to Illinois, and that's where we were raised. Um, my uncle was a military man, and he was a boxer in the military. He was a pretty violent guy, and he was a severe alcoholic. So I kind of grew up in that extreme
Yeah.
poverty. In fact, I've got to send you a picture of the house. I was just over in Danville, Illinois, where I was raised last weekend, and the house is still standing that we were
Oh,
raised
wow.
in. I couldn't believe it. So I had to take pictures of it. So I've showed it to people, and they're like, well, that's not really a house. That's, like a little shack or garage. I was like, no, there were five of us in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, grew up like that, bro. Started selling drugs at 15 to get out of that. I saw the guys with the Corvettes and the speedboats, and I said, there's just no way I'm going to live like this. So at 15, I started trafficking drugs. By the time I was 18 or 19, I was going down to the Mexican border and doing my thing, man.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I was wondering, the part of your story where you would serve so long for drug offenses. So this is more like heavy, big time stuff that would be more of like a federal crime. Is that right?
Yeah. I ended up getting a 22-year federal sentence,
Ooh.
but bro, I was so criminally minded that I would, you know how it goes, man. I would commit a felony every day. So not only was I involved in drug trafficking, but I had just a lot of other stuff going on because I had a crew. I had convictions over multiple categories. So when I did eventually get indicted by the federal government, the FBI and the ATF and the DEA raided my house, they found 6 kilos of cocaine,
Ooh.
but which wasn't in my house. It was at my business, but it doesn't matter. They're going to get warrants for whatever they need, wherever a dog hits or whatever information they have. But by the time I went to federal court, they were using all my prior offenses against me to enhance me, to give me a lengthier sentence. That's how the federal system works. So I had a prior offense for marijuana trafficking, which I got probation for. I had a prior offense where I had a girlfriend that was 17 when I was 21, which I took an Alford plea on that case, which essentially is like, I'm just going to plead no contest. I'm not going to, admit to anything truly wrongdoing here. But it doesn't matter. In the federal system, whatever background you have is used against you. And that's it, brother. Katie bar the door, you're going to prison for 20 years, even though it's a nonviolent drug crime.
Wow. Wow. Man, that's great. So how old were you when that happened?
Brother, I was 26. My wife, I was newly married. I'd been married for less than a month. My wife was 22.
Yeah, yeah.
So they gave me 262 months of federal prison. They gave her 24 months in federal prison, and she didn't do anything wrong. I mean, I literally have my sentencing transcripts still to this day where I told the judge, I understand why I'm here. I am a career offender. I'm a drug trafficker without question. I don't
Yeah.
understand why she's over here. But
Yeah.
the way that they do it, brother, and it's just part of their strategy, is they use whatever pieces of leverage that they can use to get you to cooperate with the government. And
Yeah.
in a case the size of mine, you would expect there to be 10 or 15 guys on the indictment. There were two people on the indictment, me and her. And that's just how it went down, and
Wow, wow. Did they give you a full 20 years at that point, or was there something that added on later?
they gave me 22 years at that point, which was the least amount of time that I could get.
Uh-huh.
And then eventually, while you're in the federal system, if you get into any type of trouble that would be eligible for a prosecution, they refer all those to a U.S. attorney because you're on federal property. You're in federal prison, you're on federal property. So I caught another case while I was in federal prison and was given an additional 14 months. And which that case is kind of interesting because at that time, you know what I mean? I had already been in federal prison, 14, 15 years.
Yeah.
It was for trying to bring in a medication for heroin overdoses.
Yeah.
And, you know, at that time, the fentanyl drug was just overtaking the Federal Bureau of Prisons. They were having, in one of the prisons that I was in 2014 and 15, that was in Virginia, they were averaging 3 overdoses a day.
Wow.
In a prison of 1,600 guys. Eventually, the Bureau of Prisons got their stuff in gear, and they wrote some legislation in there and got some stuff passed where the officers, a certain amount of officers in each prison would be required to carry Narcan or, you know, naloxone or Narcan, what they use to bring you up to sunlight, you know.
Yeah.
But back then they just didn't have it. So the inmates, we would just grab a guy, throw him in a cell, put ice on his groin, put ice on his head, and then you just got to walk away because you don't want to be there. This guy ODs, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right. I grew up in that environment, and not in prison, but my dad was a heroin addict, and seeing all those multiple different things that come with that, but seeing overdoses and trying to get him into the cold shower and all of those things to help him. That's crazy. That is crazy. So tell us a little bit about the culture shock or how you adapted to prison life and some of the horrors that's involved with that.
Sure. Well, I'm going to go back here real quick because I want to throw here when I got born again and how I got born again. How did I get saved? How did my life change?
Okay.
So I had went to prison already at the age of 21 for about 3 years. Okay. But by that time, I was a seasoned prisoner. I'd been to jail on the Mexican border. I'd been to jail in Virginia and Ohio and Illinois and just all over the country because I was involved in the trafficking. So that stint in state prison was in some really rough, wild prisons, what you would call penitentiaries, the highest security levels.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't a murderer, in one of the prisons I was in, there were 3,500 inmates. Over 2,000 of them had a life sentence. But I was a madman, brother. I mean, there was no doubt about it. I was in the drug business, but I was a leader of a crew too, and they knew that. And so that would put me in the category of being a pretty dangerous guy. And so I saw some incredibly violent things there, and some things that are just sick. You know what I mean? Some of these stories I've relayed, some of these stories I haven't even told people about. You just kind of keep them in because they're so bad. But brother, I saw a guy one day hanging in the cell, dead on a doornail, killed himself. Before he got up on the toilet to kill himself, he took his shoes off. He stepped up there barefooted, tied the sheet around his neck, and killed himself. So the guards find him hanging there dead. Well, they don't rush in there and just cut you down. They take a look at you, they see you're dead, and they just keep going, and they make the call, and they say, hey, we got one over here dead, and they'll deal with it in a few hours. The coroner will come into prison and all that there. Well, during the course of that time, his neighbor had made a fishing line out of some makeshift string from a sheet cut up, and he's throwing stuff in there, and he's trying to fish the dead man's shoes off of his floor into his cell so he can have his shoes. You see a lot of stuff like that. And you just say, you know what, this is, we can do better, brother. We can do a little better about our rehabilitation in these prisons and stuff like that, because a lot of guys in that prison, there was 2,000 that had life, but guess what? There was 1,500 that didn't.
Mm-hmm.
They was coming out. I've got some ideas about that, of how to really increase the rehabilitation in prison. But so when I went and caught my Fed case in 2003, I was still a bad guy, still a gangster for sure. And I had sent my brother on a mission from jail, from federal custody. I had sent him on a mission to go and collect some money, and he ended up getting in a high-speed police chase, fleeing from the scene of a shooting, and he got just absolutely crushed, bro. I mean, just devastated. When I got the ability to call home a week later, I didn't even know what had happened. They told me he was on life support, and so he was on life support. He was on a breathing machine, and that's when I just gave my life to the Lord, man. I mean, I was just hurting too many people. I'd hurt myself, but now I was devastating everyone around me. You know what I mean? I had a wife that was a co-defendant on a giant drug case. Now my brother's about to die. So everywhere I went, I took that death and destruction with me.
Yeah.
And that's when I gave my life to the Lord. And that's when he started to work in me. And there was a lot of work to be done. I mean, there's no doubt. Anybody that thinks that a person gets born again or becomes a recovering addict, you know how we do.
Yeah.
It's not turn the switch on and everything's flowers and daisies, man. This is a real thing. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
struggle. You need help to do it. And so that's kind of how that started. By the time I got to federal prison in Florida, man, I was just on fire for the Lord. I didn't even know what the heck was going on with me. You know what I mean? Because I had been in prison for them years as a gangster.
Yeah, yeah. So, man, that there's a lot there to unpack. But my most curious question is, because I know the culture. You know, I had to kind of conform to the culture, and it was, you know, in my neck of the woods, you know, from my dad's connection with the Aryan Brotherhood and the Nazi lowriders, and you know, me naturally going to the skinhead Peckerwood route. Um, like, did you have to choose a side in prison, and did, you know, the old you who you used to be, and then now you're changed? Like, how did you withdraw yourself from that, what was expected of you?
Brother, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. And that's something that I did write about in my book, the book that I think I mentioned to you that I wrote. It's not done yet, but it's
Uh-huh.
almost done. But that's one of the things I wrote about. My record in the FBI file, which I would confess to this, and I'd say it's true because they know it's true because I have a giant gang tattoo on my chest. I was an insane Spanish Cobra, which is a gang in Illinois, and it's predominantly in the Chicago area. And it's considered to be a pretty violent gang, but the insane part that they put on there is put you in a little bit more of an exclusive group. Like, okay, this guy's, you know what I mean? He
Yeah,
will go there.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so, like when I was in state prison, you know, I volunteered to do a hit one time. It wasn't even mine. They assigned it to somebody else, but I was just like, you know, I'll go do it. So we had to get permission from the boss that was in another housing unit through kites to say, hey, Rooster wants to do it. So I was that type of a dude, you know. When I come into federal prison, of course, you've got the Aryans, you've got the skinhead, the Nazi lowriders, those type of groups that you're talking about. Now, when I was in Florida, they were trying to recruit, you know, guys down there.
Mhm.
Um, if they come to me with that, you know, I just tell them what it is automatically. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
then
yeah.
they kind of have a choice. You know what I mean? They can put 5 or 6 guys on me to try to jump me and crush me, but they got to remember that I'm not by myself. You know what I'm saying? I'm not by myself. So if they were to do that, it would be it would have to go all the way. And most of the guys aren't prepared to go all the way. They might jump on somebody and go to the shoe for a little bit and then come back out. But are they really prepared to go all the way? Is it worth their life to them?
Yeah,
Probably not.
yeah. I get that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I would do, like 2004, 2005, 2006, if I had a buddy, somebody that worked out with me, and he was a white dude, and he had just come into the prison, and he, you know, he comes to my unit. He's like, "Hey, man, I want to start working out, and I see you work out a lot, blah blah blah." I'd say, "Okay, you know, you can work out with me for a little bit, but here's the deal: these boys are fixing to come at you. They're going to want you." And you're going to have an option in this, because of this security level that I was in Florida was considered a medium high. It wasn't a penitentiary where it was mandatory that he was going to have to ride. It was a medium high where he was going to have a choice. It was going to determine where he could sit at in the chow hall and who he could associate with, but he was going to have a choice there. And I told him, look, here's what's going to happen. They're going to come at you and you're going to have the option. You can go with these guys and be part of their clique and part of their crew, or you can rock with me for a while. But you rock with me, we're going to talk about the Bible. And we're going to talk about the Lord and how we can help other people. And so believe it or not, it was pretty effective,
Yeah,
but it wasn't, the success rate wasn't always 100%. I saw
yeah, yeah.
guys get turned out by them guys, and then I wouldn't see them for 8 months later. And the next time I see them, their whole body's covered with tattoos. They've got tattoos of giant chains around their neck, and they're just all the way into it. And I would tell them the truth. You know, I would tell them the absolute truth. I'd say, look, here's what's going to happen. If you go with these guys, there's going to be a talk. It's going to come something like this. Okay. One of the guys that's probably got your unit, or maybe he's the chief of security, he's going to say, hey, little brother, you get visits. And you're going to be like, yeah, you know, my mom and my sister come see me. Okay, that's good. my people going to meet them down here at the gas station. They're going to give them a pack to bring in to me. And you're going to say, well, what? You know what I mean? I don't want to do that. Well, it's going to be, that's exactly what you know what I mean? And that's how it's going to go. You know what I mean? So they can't say they weren't warned because Bruce was telling them, you know, I'm like, look, y'all, this is going to happen, man. Yeah.
Man, that's good. Not too many people would get what you're talking about, brother, but I get it 100%. So as you're like pulling these guys maybe over to the light a little bit, like you find yourself like mentoring and you know, kind of discipling these guys as they come in. Is that what it is?
I would try to work with guys, but you know, every man's going to choose his own way. And you know, at the same time, I'm the type of dude that if I don't see that a dude is 100% sold out to what he's trying to do, because what happened with me, I'm just going to be honest with you, bro. And I've talked about this a little bit in the past, but this is a unique opportunity here talking to you and to your audience. I'm not the type of dude where religion would work. You're not that type of dude. From everything that I know about you, that's not what's going to work for me. I need to have an encounter with the Lord. I need to know that this thing is real and authentic. You know what I mean? I can't be a poser or an imposter with this. I could never be the type of guy that just go to prison and just grab a Bible and start running over to the chapel as some type of safety net. It cannot be like that. I need to have an encounter with God. I need to get by myself, which I would do. I need to fast for however long it takes, and I need to pray, and I need to say, Lord, I need you to reveal yourself to me. Please do this. I've got to change the course of my life. I need to see you. I need to know that you're real. Going to church and singing myself into a frenzy and walking out feeling good was not going to change the course of my life. You know, I'd be back in the streets as a gangster selling dope within a week. So I would make sure that if a dude came to me, he wasn't required to have that type of dedication immediately, but I would like to see that evolve in him. Where, as I'm answering questions and explaining to him and what happened to me and what's going on with my life and why am I trying to help people, that this is why, and can cultivate that type of desire inside of him.
Yeah. Man, that's powerful. Hey, take me to one of the greatest things that you feel like that God did that used you as an instrument, or something that happened that was like amazing, and it was God that happened behind bars, brother.
Okay, can I give you two instances?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would love to give you two, because one I couldn't leave out because it's probably the greatest event that's ever happened in my life.
Okay.
Greater than my children being born. This is the greatest thing that I can say has happened in my life since, during this 80 or 90 years of time on the earth that I'm going to have. Okay. It is about the fall of 2004. And I've been born again. At that time, I had been saved for over a year. And I was walking out in front of a buddy of mine's prison cell. We were getting ready to go to lunch. We were ready to go to chow. The night before, I had been reading in the Word and reading in the Bible about the Holy Spirit. And I came across a scripture in Luke chapter 11, verse 13, where Jesus said, how much more will your Father give the Holy Spirit to those that ask him? Yeah. But I understood there, and I did a little research through the concordance and stuff, that word ask right there is a stronger word. It's a type of word that you and I would use. It's almost like demanding. Like, hey, let me get that.
Vital necessity. Yeah, I need this to live.
I need this. I got to have this, And brother, I prayed boldly that night. And nothing happened. Well, the next day when I was walking out in front of his cell for him to get dressed and get himself together, we're going to walk to the chow hall together. I just was talking to the Lord a little bit under my breath by myself. Wasn't too many people in the unit. They'd already went to chow. And bro, the Spirit whispered to me like he does. And he said, open your mouth. And brother, when I opened my mouth, that thing hit me in my belly like this and got to rumbling and started coming out of my body, man. And I was speaking in tongues and I didn't even know what that was. And I was like, what? Took off, went to the cell, shut the door, hit my knees, threw my hands up and just let it flow out. I mean, it's just flowing out. It's the greatest, if you've experienced it, it's the greatest feeling in the world. First words I said in English, bro, I looked up at the ceiling of that cell and I said, Jesus, I knew you was there. Mm-hmm. It was like, that was the revelation he gave me. I was a believer. I believed it. But now that that's happened, I know it. So it puts you in awe, it takes your breath away because you're like, oh, Lord, that means this is all true. That means that God is God. That means Jesus was God in the flesh and he really did come here and he really died on the cross and he really rose from the dead and this whole thing's real. real. So I went and told my buddy about it, and he was like, what? And I said, listen to this. And he let him hear it, and he was like, man, that's awesome. And he had been part of some Pentecostal stuff when he was on the street, so he was familiar.
Yeah.
And so that was the biggest event. Now, even after that, prison's prison, bro. And God's got his hand on you. But in 2005, I got in a bad fight with a dude. I was actually laying on my bed reading the Bible. Dude outside my race coming to cell and disrespecting me, tuned him up, went to solitary confinement, which that's a wild story that I've told before of being in contact with devil worshipers and trying to lead them to the Lord and talking to them about the Lord. But the other really just incredible experience that I had was in 2017. And in May of 2017, I was put into solitary confinement. They left me in there until the end of May of 2018. So it was over a year in a cell by myself with a Bible, all the way sold out to the Lord. Like, Lord, I need you to do this. I need you to reveal yourself to me in a supernatural way. I need to hear from you. How can I help other people if I can't present a risen, living Jesus? How can I help other people if I'm not a possessor of the Holy Spirit to such a degree that I could give it to him? So during that time, I was doing long fast, bro. Long fast, go week. You know what I mean? And when I say fast, I mean, it's just water only. And sometimes I wouldn't even take water. And just, so what started happening, this old prison in solitary confinement, it's got bars in front of it because it's a real old ADX, a maximum security. And then down the tier is also men that are in bars. So I was able to communicate with people, and guys knew me, you know what I mean? So eventually, you're rapping, you're talking, not rapping like rap music, but you just be like, hey, oh man, I'm in my Bible, man, I'm down here doing this or doing that. So over the course of a few months, they started asking about, hey, can you show me something? Or what's this mean? Or what do you believe? Or why are you doing that? Or this or that. And within 6 months, brother, we were having full-fledged Bible studies back there. Guys were getting born again. Skinhead dudes were getting born again. Two dudes back there received a baptism in the Holy Spirit like I had back in 2004. And it was without question probably the wildest time that I can even imagine in prison, because this place was such a dungeon. It was the darkest, dankest dungeon that exists inside of the prison, and God was showing up. God was showing up, man. This went on for a year, bro.
Man, that's crazy. Man, I have two questions I want to ask them because I don't want to forget the other one. The first one is how do you not become institutionalized? And then the next one, so I don't forget it, is what do you think the reform that needs to happen in the justice system? So how does somebody not become institutionalized? Like, I mean, that long and then that much time alone, like, you're told when to do things and to line up. Everything's about code and conformity and all of that. Like, that's a long time to get conditioned, man.
Yeah. Well, let me address real quick question number 2 about the reforms, and then I'll come back to that. Recently, I was asked to be a guest lecturer at Bradley University here in Peoria, Illinois. And that was the big topic of the conversation. They actually gave me the floor for 2 hours. And I gave a talk with a bunch of future lawyers and judges, graduate students. And the title of the course was The History of Violence in America. But, I got to take it all over. I got to take it all the way to not only the solutions that I believe could work for that, but the solutions I believe that could work for prison reform. And then I got to take it to Jesus too, because that's who I am. I can't change that. So even though these guys are not thinking it's that type of talk or that, I have to always bring it back to that core and that center, but at the same time, bring out the solutions. And I'll come right back to that. How do I keep from being institutionalized? Okay. Well, one of the things that I did is I read a lot. And I mean, when I say I read a lot, there was times I could read just a couple hundred books in a year, man. You know what I mean? But a certain amount of that institutionalization you cannot avoid. You just can't. So after coming out, after all these years, you had the initial shock of never having seen a smartphone, never having been on Facebook, haven't talked to a girl in 20 years. You've got all those type of things that put you into shock, But as far as like my meal needs to be at this time, or my nap needs to be at this time. It's going to happen, and you just got to kind of try to bring yourself out of it. I
Yeah.
was so conditioned to take a nap every day at 4 o'clock because 4 o'clock's count time. For 20 years, 4 o'clock's been count time, where they lock you in your cell and count you. And you've got
Yeah.
about an hour there where everybody just takes a nap, you know? So when you come out of prison, you're like, well, it's about 4 up. And you're getting a little tired. The world doesn't work like that. Now, these dudes have had it a lot worse than me, you know, and we joke about that, like, hey, man, this dude's over there saving silverware under his pillow, or, brother, you don't have to hoard toilet paper out here, you know what I mean? Because in prison, you don't have toilet paper. Out here, dudes got 40, 50 rolls of toilet paper in their bathroom. Like, brother, you don't have to do that. It's a grocery store over there. We can go get you some. And I was in the halfway house for 6 months. I've just recently got my own place and everything here for the last couple of months. It's been awesome. But yeah, so a touch of that's going to rock with you, man. 10 years in prison is a long time. 10 years out of society in prison is a long time, brother. I did double that, you know. So, but by the grace of God, he saved my mind. He kept my mind super duper sharp. And man, I'm so thankful for that, because so many guys, you know, there's a thing in prison, it's called the 100-yard stare. And when you see guys that have been down for so long, you'll catch them multiple times a day and they're just gone.
Yeah.
And you maybe let them stay there for a moment, because it's a moment of tranquility and peace where his mind has decided, you know what, no more. And it needs to escape from that for a while. And then you might just walk up to him and say, hey, brother, what's up, man? You good? And he'd snap out of it. Most of the time he's like, yeah, man, I'm good. Okay, yeah. Do you know, sometimes he might say, you know, Steve, I'm not good, man. And I'll be like, come on. You know what it is, man. Let's talk about it, because I've been through it too. I mean, we've all been through everything. People in your family die. The cop hit you in the balls that day while he was patting you down because he's having a bad day with his old lady, so he decided to punch you in the balls. You know what I mean? It happens. You know what I mean? It's part of the sentence, and you just kind of roll with it. Some guys don't learn how to roll with it as easily, so you try to lift them up. But my biggest thing was always taking them back to the Lord, man.
Yeah.
You know,
Matt, I just want to give you feedback too, man. You're so sharp. You know, the words just flow out of you, and very few. I haven't even heard any filler words or anything like that. You're sharp as a tack, brother. Like, that is so, like, amazing to go through that experience and just be so, like, it's amazing. So we got to wrap it up. We got about 6 minutes, but bring me to the reform and how it needs to take place. Now, I'm familiar with this, man. I was a supervisor in a treatment center for boys. We got them when they were young. You know, the case files horrendous, man. What they went through and all this different stuff. Pull people down from hanging themselves. Like, I'm, you know, I get the culture and I get what needs to happen. But from your perspective, what needs to happen to the justice system to be more maybe helpful?
okay, I've got a lot here to unpack. I'm going to try to do it as fast as possible. Okay, number one, I talk a lot about prison reform, things that can happen in prison to help guys that are coming home after 15 or 20 years so that they don't go right back to prison, because a lot of them do. You got to teach a guy how to use a cell phone. You need to have a class in there where that phone's chained to a wall. When he's 30 days from being released, teach him how to use a smartphone so he can pay his bills, he can pay his rent, he can fill out a job application. I presented that to somebody from the Federal Bureau of Prisons that is a big wig there that was walking through the halfway house. She said it was the best idea she'd ever heard. Now, here's the thing. It shouldn't be the best idea she's ever heard, because that's common sense, bro. You know, the whole world's running off this thing. The guy's done 20 years. Let's figure this out. It's not that hard, for real. But I've got several ideas for prison reform. As far as reform out here and becoming like a violent intersector or something of that nature to try to tap down the violent crime. Two things. Number one, I love what you said about the youth. When I gave the speech at Bradley, I said, I personally believe we need programs in the United States. If they already exist, I understand that they exist on a smaller level and they need to be expanded. So many guys in prison have never been fishing or hunting. So many. Okay. You got to get in these inner cities, like these middle-class kids that are in the suburbs and stuff like that. Everybody gets to go to summer camp in the summer. These kids in the inner city has never been in the forest. They've never been in the woods, and they haven't had a mentor. I've talked to guys that never been out of their building. Let's have a program. We've got all this money that we're throwing at these problems, and none of it's working because we're trying to use the same remedies that ain't working. Go in there every summer. Say, every one of you kids in here in this particular project, every one of you that wants to go to summer camp can go. for
Well,
free for
yeah.
3 months. Have the government pay the counselors that are available. I know it's going to be expensive, but it's worth it, bro. Get
Yeah.
people out of there. The situations that they have with big brothers and big sisters and stuff like that, that's honorable. I know guys that went through those programs. And here's the problem. You take them to Baskin Robbins, they go get a new pair of tennis shoes, you hang out with them for a couple hours, you drop them back off at home. His mama's in the kitchen with a busted lip and a black eye. Their dad's drunk because he just beat her ass. It's
Yeah.
chaos. They're
Yeah.
going back to that environment and they can't come up out of there, man, until you extract them from there for a pretty good period of time. So
Yeah.
I
I
focused on
think
that.
the parents would be more than willing, man.
I do too. I really do. You know what I mean? Yeah, I really, really do.
Powerful.
So that would just be one idea to really kind of help with the youth. Another big one, bro, that I'm going to pound. I haven't even put anything out there about it yet, but because I've been kind of persuaded, even though I had that one video that kind of took off on YouTube and took off on TikTok where I talked about the marijuana laws, I've been persuaded to kind of get away from that and come back to my main message, which is salvation through Jesus and changed minds and changed lives through the Lord Jesus, because that's what worked for me. And I know that the Lord's real and I know it works.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
another thing that can work, bro, when it comes to reform is there's got to be a change in gun laws. And I don't care which side of the political spectrum that somebody's on, Republican or Democrat, they know there's a problem with gun violence.
Yeah.
Okay. It gets so political, but let's not be political about it. Let's just say we've got a tremendous problem with gun violence. What's going on here? I saw this happening 7 or 8 years ago in prison. I'm in there doing 22 years for nonviolent drug crime. Most of my buddies were in there doing 20, 25, 30 years for nonviolent drug crimes. We notice all these gangbangers coming in, okay, with 30 months, 37 months. One of my last roommates had 37 months. I said, you got 37 months? I said, dog, what'd you do to get 37 months? Because the feds don't give you time like that. He said, well, I had just got out of prison. I got caught on the block with a loaded heater. I said, wait a minute. You just got out of prison and you got caught on the block with a loaded gun. Now, they know you're not going deer hunting. They know you're not going squirrel hunting. They gave you 37 months. Let me see your paperwork. So I checked their paperwork, make sure they're not a snitch. This is what's going on, dog. If you're a convicted felon, you're not allowed to have a firearm, man. Whether people believe it's right or wrong, man, a lot of people are violent convicted felons. They shouldn't have a firearm, okay?
Right.
But the way they got it set up, bro, is that if you do get caught with a firearm, it's a slap on the wrist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of these kids are coming to prison, man, and getting 2-3 years, and they're kicking them right back out. The same beef that they went to prison for is still going on. It's a revolving door right there. You can't do that, bro. It's out of whack. You're giving guys 20 years for nonviolent drug crimes. You give them 3 years for having gotten out of prison, grabbing a hold of a loaded pistol, and getting caught on the block gangbanging. Fix it. I'm not saying give these guys so much less.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into prison reform conversation about dropping all these sentences for drug dealers, but I do want to look at this and say, listen, you're not doing him no good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Years and send him back out to the same problem, because guess what he's got to do? He's got to grab that gun.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. That's a very good observation. So we got 1 minute. Let's break this down for me. The one thing that you would like to pass on, if you had one truth to share right now, spit it out fast. Let's go.
Here it is, brother. I don't care if you're a convicted felon. I don't care if you've been a drug dealer. I don't care if you sit in church every weekend. You've been in church your whole life, man. The same problems that men have in there translate to the same problems that men out here have with broken marriages, not getting along with their children. If you are dedicated and determined to change the course of your life, and you're desperate enough to do it, there's an answer, man. And I'm telling you, that answer is the Lord Jesus, man. It's not going to be in a religion. It's going to be you sitting down in your prayer closet saying, Lord, please reveal yourself to me. I'll do whatever it takes for you to reveal yourself to me to change the course of my life. And he'll do it. He promises to do it. He says he's standing right there at the door. His words, not mine, bro.
Boom. All right, brother. Thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate you so much.